And Michigan is not the only state dealing with voting laws. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp just signed his own new voting bill into law and is facing backlash for it, even from President Biden. Here to respond to it is Governor Brian Kemp. Governor, thank you for taking time on this Saturday. I know you've just toured your state's storm damage. I'll get to that. But first, I want you to listen to President Biden bashing your new law. Listen.
It's an atrocity. The idea, if you want any indication that it has nothing to do with fairness, nothing to do with decency, they passed a law saying you can't provide water for people standing in line while they're waiting to vote. You don't need anything else to know that this is nothing but punitive, designed to keep people from voting.
Governor Kemp, your reaction?
Well, I don't think the president or his handlers actually compared Georgia voting laws to the state of Delaware, where he's from, because we have a lot more opportunities for people to vote early here in the great state of Georgia than in Delaware, and perhaps people will compare those. This bill that I just signed, is expanding the opportunity for people to vote early here in Georgia, again, with even additional potential for people to vote on Saturday and Sunday. Is further securing the absentee ballot process by simply adding a photo ID requirement or number from your ID that will actually speed up the absentee balloting by mail process, which was very slow after this last election. Take the arbitrary part of that away. So really it's an election integrity bill, but also expands access. So it's kind of ironic that the president would be against that.
Governor, your critics say, and President Biden calling it Jim Crow 2.0, specifically the heaviest criticism is that this new law limits voting access to African Americans specifically. What do you say to that?
Well, I can, truthfully look in the camera and ask my African American friends and other African Americans in Georgia to simply find out what's in the bill versus just the blank statement of this is Jim Crow or, this is voter suppression or this is racist, because it is not. It expands early voting in Georgia. It also further secures the ballot with the photo ID requirement. And I would urge them to do just that and ask themselves, who's being truthful to you here? Is it the governor and the legislature that just voted on this bill? Or is it, a lot of these third-party groups that are making millions off of putting this false narrative out there, or the president that obviously doesn't know what his own voting laws are in his own state?
Governor, for our viewers, maybe just hearing this story, seeing the two sides of this, what is in this bill that people need to know about? What is most important?
Well, obviously we talked about the access side of things. There's now going to be 2 mandatory Saturdays. You can have the option, if counties want to vote on 2 potential Sundays, which that is adding access. We're adding the photo ID requirement to absentee ballots by mail. We already have that requirement in our law when you go vote in person. Before the last election, 95% of the people voted in person. So people are used to using an ID to vote in Georgia, so it's not a big deal like people are making it out. And if you don't have ID, we'll give you one for free. We're addressing the drop box situation. The left and the outrageous people that are making money off this are claiming that we're taking away the potential to use a drop box. That was never in the law, Griff. It's never been in the state law in Georgia. We did that with this bill. We're just going to make sure it's a secure process and that those drop boxes are monitored. And this whole ridiculous statement about water, you can get water if you're standing in line. Your county can provide a drink cooler for you to get water. But the real question is, people that are outraged about that, they should be asking, why am I standing in line that long to start with? This bill addresses that with the number of machines that should be at every precinct based on the percent of population that's going to be voting in that precinct to help speed up the election. People should be outraged in these Democratic-run counties that they're having to stand in line for 2 or 3 hours here in the state of Georgia. That is not the norm around the state. So a lot of these things, there's no truth behind it. They're trying to they just believe that if they say it long enough, people will believe it and they'll send them money. I would encourage people to actually read the bill, find out what the facts are, and thankfully there's a lot of media outlets now that are putting some good information out about what is exactly in the bill, and also comparing it to states like, Delaware, Colorado, California, and other Democratic-led states, Hawaii, that have much more restrictive laws on voting than Georgia does.
Governor, one of your fellow legislators, a Democrat woman, was arrested, led away from banging on your door, trying to stop it. Your reaction to that?
Well, look, that's exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to, have some sort of scene that would distract from actually what the bill does, because you have every single Democrat in the Georgia legislature that voted against adding access for weekend voting in Georgia and requiring a photo ID requirement on absentee by mail, which we already do when you vote in person. They're just, I think, trying to distract from that narrative and sell this whole sham of something that is not reality.
Governor, you've just gotten off of a tour of the storm damage in your state. I want, in the time we've got left here, just have you tell us what you saw and what the future holds.
Unbelievable. I mean, I've seen a lot of storms, even in the 2 years that I've been here, and the devastation that they leave. I was seeing a lot of the aerial footage last night on the news, and none of it does justice to what I saw on the ground. This was an F4 tornado, Griff. There's only been 10 of them since 1950, and one of them was just occurred here in Georgia. So our thoughts and prayers go out to all those folks. But I will tell you, the state response, working with the locals, along with hundreds, probably thousands of volunteers and people like the Red Cross and others that are on the ground, was heartwarming, because that community is devastated. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Literally houses ripped off the foundation, and pulling the anchor bolts out of the concrete was how powerful this storm was. But we've got a great team over there, and we're going to stay there as long as we need.
In just a few seconds left, are you getting federal support that you need?
I haven't heard a whole lot from the feds just yet on this, but our GEMA team's on the ground. A lot of that depends on what we see in the days ahead with the dollar amount and a lot of other things, but we'll get to all that part of it. But the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, the locals, just about every state agency that can respond is responding now.
Governor Brian Kemp, thank you very much for taking time. We will keep Georgians in our thoughts and prayers.